Here's a very interesting statistic. Gallup, since 1948, has been asking Americans this question. When a person has a disease that cannot be cured, do you think doctors should be allowed by law to end the patient's life by some painless means if the patient and his or her family request it? And in 1948, the number of people who said yes was 37%. It went down to 36% in 49. And then it started climbing. And in the 70s, it hit 53%, more than half of Americans. And I think it was the 70s. It could have been the 80s that Dr. Kevorkian started getting a lot of publicity, so that by 1991, it was 65%. And by 96, which might have been the peak of Kevorkian, I frankly don't remember, it was at 75%. It has since declined somewhat. It's at 69% right now. It was 70% last year. But basically, 7 in 10 Americans support the idea of euthanasia. Let me take this a step farther. I remember I was involved with, or a witness to, shall we say, a training back in the 60s by a fellow who was essentially a Buddhist. He was working with the local Methodist minister, and the people going through this were also using LSD with this, which is opens a whole nother can of worms. And so I'd like to kind of set that to the side. But basically what these folks were doing in the sanctuary of the Methodist Church was walking through, under acid, was walking through the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Tibetan Buddhism has a very elaborate ritual about dying associated with it, and that there are these 7 bardos, these 7 stages of death, some which occur before you leave the body, some which occur after you leave the body, and that so there's preparation for death, there is the experience of death, and then you are fully prepared for what's going to happen after death in the Tibetan tradition. And in some other traditions, the Catholics, you're going to go to whatever, and then, actually, I shouldn't speak for Catholics. I'm not Catholic. I was raised Protestant, Methodist, and it was, you die and you're immediately going to go to heaven. And Jesus is going to welcome you, and you get to hang out on the clouds and play a harp or whatever. I mean, nobody ever actually, I don't recall anybody ever actually saying, this is what it's going to be like. But the Tibetans were pretty specific about it. And even the idea that you may be reincarnated and you have to go through this cycle a few times until you get it right, and then finally, you become one with all and all that kind of thing. The point of all this is that there was a time back in the late 60s when death and dying was being discussed in the context of life and living. That the death of the ego, that letting go of this concept of self and becoming simply present, which is the ultimate goal of many Buddhist teachings and some Hindu teachings and the mystic Christian teachings and the mystic Muslim teachings, Islamic teachings. Look at what the Sufis say. Look at what Meister Eckhart said. Read Meister Eckhart's writings. The 16th or 17th century German Catholic mystic. Mind-boggling stuff. And it's all about letting go of ego, dying to the world, being awakened, being reborn into life. I sat with my dad for several days as he died and sat with him while he died. And I didn't realize until after he died that the kind of stroke that he had meant that he had, even though he couldn't move anything, he was probably fully conscious through that whole period of time. And one of the great regrets of my life is that I never shared with my dad while he was dying and could hear me what I had learned back when I was 16 years old, sitting through this class essentially in the sanctuary of the Methodist Church in East Lansing, Michigan, on Trowbridge Road, with a bunch of people who were tripping, about the significance of letting go, just letting it go, and dying a good death, and not being afraid, and just being present with it. which I hope I can bring to the forward part of my consciousness when my time comes. And if I'm not able to, I hope that there's somebody around me who can, which raises a whole nother issue, which is not just should we be giving doctors the ability to give somebody, here's 6 ounces of phenobarbital, good luck. Should our religious institutions, or maybe even something outside of our religious institutions, although this seems to me an appropriate place for religion, at least those that are less judgmental, be teaching their pastors in training, their ministers, their priests in training, their rabbis in training, their mullahs in training, whatever. Should they be teaching people how to die? Should we be talking about that in this society? I believe we should. And I think that it informs our living. I realize I'm starting to sound like I'm giving a sermon here, but I feel very strongly about this, that this is one of the great lessons that I learned from Michael Hutchison, who passed away just this last year, but who has been a guest on this program a number of times back 5-6 years ago when he was able to do so, and who had this experience of being paralyzed from the neck down and letting go and experiencing this massive enlightenment where just everything in the universe became him and he became it, and it was just, it's all one. And I would call him up and we'd have these long conversations, and he'd say, you're just watching the movie, Tom. Stop thinking it's real. It's just the movie. You are everything. You're not just this little person. And it's all playing out exactly the way it's supposed to. When it hurts, that's how it's supposed to play out. When it feels good, that's how it's supposed to play out. If you take any of it seriously and think that there's really a you who's here, then you just get stuck in it. It was amazing, these conversations Michael and I used to have. Shouldn't we be having these kind of conversations with dying people?
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
Shouldn't we look at a body of literature about dying? I mean, it exists. It's there. In fact, look at that as a great starting point.